Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shifting Gears. I am your host, Clutch. We had an incredible weekend this weekend. Tons of StarCraft 2 action that happened across the world. And, guys, I have two great guests. They're going to help me recap what happened this weekend in the StarCraft 2 universe. First off is Wigan, one of the admins for Major League Gaming. Wigan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Always a pleasure.
And first-time guest on this show is from Team Infinity 7, Axslav. Axslav, how you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. You know, just got back from a really fun tournament over in New York, also known as the Spring Arena #2. And yeah, it was fun.
It was a blast. He was the expert replay analyst. Gave a lot of great analysis. I get those mixed up. Analyst analysis. We gave a lot of great analysis of the different matches that happened that weekend, and we got to play with the community. So Axslav is a great anchor, co-anchor, and a good host. So if you guys ever need a player that plays professionally and has a lot of great insight in the game, not just with his race Protoss, but the other races, dude, hire Axslav, man. He is great. But Axslav, since this is your first time on the show, I'd like to have you introduce yourself a little bit more, talk about your role in the StarCraft 2 esports realm, and a little bit more about your team and recent tournaments you've attended. So the floor is yours.
All right, so I'm a professional StarCraft 2 player. I started out right when StarCraft 2 came out. I was with Team EG, and I was with them for a little while. And then I moved on to Team Rain, and I'm with Infinity 7. I've been with them for a little over 2 months now. They're a fun group of people. I love the team. And the last couple tournaments I've been to was, of course, I was an analyst at the MLG Spring Arena. But as far as competing at, about a week and a couple days ago, I was at the Green Forest LAN down in Ventura, California, where I got second. And then before that, the next tournament would have been probably the MLG Winter Championships in Columbus, Ohio, where I made the championship bracket, but then I lost in I think the first or the second round of the championship bracket.
Now, in the land that you had out in California, your opponent was Empire Violet in the finals, correct?
Yeah, he ended up winning the tournament. It was Empire Violet got first, I got second, Empire BCQD got third, and I believe fourth was Select, and then fifth and sixth was, I think, Complexity State and Gosu STX.
Wow, hey, congratulations making second. I saw the highlight video. That was sponsored by MSI, correct? That was a big sponsor out there.
Yeah, MSI was the main sponsor for Green Forest. And Day 9 was out there too, so there was a lot of people. It was really fun. They actually had an outdoor, you know, the LAN tournament was all inside. But because there wasn't much space there, they had like a screen set up outside in the parking lot. They had chairs set up, and so people could just watch it all outside. Yeah,
it was not bad of a gathering there. I saw a number of people in those chairs in the video. It was funny because I saw them filming the players outside to do that video, and Flo was looking at the camera like, "What do you want me to do?" kind of face. But they gave a good little wrap up in that video to show what was happening. But pretty cool. You know, Violet takes that one, and then he goes on to win Spring Arena #2. Excuse me, the pollen in Virginia is terrible right now, causing me to cough a lot. Wigan knows all about that. But we're going to start off talking about the MLG Spring Arena #2. Now, this tournament I know most information about compared to the rest of the tournaments because I was there, even though myself and Axslav did not see every match because we were mainly in the Dr. Pepper Lounge. We got to see, a lot of matches. And this was a pay-per-view event, right? So the viewership isn't going to be as big as a free event, but still, a lot of people gave a lot of good feedback. They really enjoyed themselves, heard opinions not just from fans, but from other pro players that didn't attend but watched. And they feel like they almost go through withdrawal not having an MLG next weekend or every weekend. They enjoyed it that much. So in a smaller format, an arena format, with the New York City skyline behind them and no crowd, it's different than the Pro Circuit events which we have been used to, and this is a newer format still for Major League Gaming, but so far I think it's been a success. and well worth the cost. It's kind of funny. Axslav and I are always talking about how much the passes are, right? $20 for the arena pass, $30 for the spring season pass, $15 if you're a gold member. We pretty much had that memorized. And is this something that I would personally buy and watch? Yeah, I already did. Like, I work at these events, but I still bought a pass because I believe it's worth it, and I want to support that kind of tournament format. So I've supported other leagues. NASL, I bought their pass. I've really enjoyed, what they've been doing with their tournament. So this whole free realm esports thing, Total Biscuit wrote up a very nice response on Reddit with how it works with just free streams and advertising compared to the hardcore fans and pay-per-view and the margin of income or profit that comes from it. And it's worth it. It's working. If it wasn't working, we wouldn't have it. So with that being said, Axslav, what are your overall thoughts of the Spring Arena number 2?
I thought the games, from a gameplay perspective, was just a huge success. There was so many great games there. I was doing a lot of replay analysis, and it was just, it was so much more fun than it could have been if the games weren't quite as good. So it was super, super high level. And as far as the players too, everyone looked like they were having fun. It was, I think, everyone was more relaxed because there wasn't, at least the crowds, there wasn't the same intense environment. You get in there and you focus and you play your game, and then you can sit back, you can chill in the lounge with just other players and relax and watch other games on the big screen. You can go grab a bite to eat right there easily, and I think it was a really big success overall.
Yeah, a little bit different than the huge marathons that happen at the pro circuits. A little bit more of a controlled environment, 32 players. Last time there was just 8 players, this time 32. So it's a little bit more crowded in the Dr. Pepper Lounge watching the games, but I felt that the players had a good time. It's tough to see players that have been knocked out. Not that they're moody or irritable. I feel bad for them because now they have the rest of the weekend to what are they going to do? Watch the games? They're going to check out New York City. MMA went and checked out different parts of New York City because he got knocked out. I saw Thorzane and Idra in the Dr. Pepper Lounge a number of times just checking out the different games. But they seemed relaxed. It didn't seem like they were uncomfortable or in a place that wasn't accommodating. And the people at MLG, I may be a little bit biased because most events I've worked at have been Major League Gaming events, but the staff there is concerned about making sure the players are comfortable. And the hotel, honestly, is not that far away. It's just a couple blocks away. And if they want to go back and rest or check out parts of New York City, they're welcome to. They're not chained to that office if they've been knocked out of the tournament. So, yeah, the vibe there was great. Everything ran very smoothly, technically-wise, tournament-wise. But, yeah, I want to comment now about the matches. First off, MMA versus MC, which was the first match and streamed free to everybody. MMA is my bro, man. If he is in any matchup, I'll go for him almost any time. And I expected him to come out winning against MC, but MC knocked him out. And those games were pretty good, but the performance of MC I thought was pretty good this tournament. Now, yourself as a Protoss player, I think you got to look at the replays of those games. How did you feel MC did overall?
Yeah, MC... a lot of people are saying he's been losing a lot of his form and stuff, but I don't really think so. I think he's still, in my mind, him and Genius are the 2 best Protosses right now, without a doubt. There's a lot of people. Last GSL, yes, the 3 highest placing Protosses were Squirtle, Hero, and Parting, and those are excellent Protosses as well. But I honestly think MC and Genius are the 2 best, and MC, he outperformed every other Protoss at this event by a considerable margin. He was definitely on form with his play. MMA, I actually felt MMA hasn't really evolved in the last 2 months or so, which is partly why MC's been getting so much better. Several months ago, all he was doing was just 2 base timings, and he was doing them super, super well. His mechanics are solid, but he was starting to get predictable, and people were able to take advantage of that. But nowadays, he still has that scary threat of all his timings, but he also has such good three-base plays. He does a lot of timings off three bases. He does a lot of greedy attacks and stuff, and he really mixes it up there. And the trademark of his play is that no matter what build he does, his micro is always so amazing that just like sets him apart from every other Protoss.
The style of gameplay, when you mentioned MC, I thought of MMA too, because we had commented on the amount of drops he was doing and the mobility of his bio force there.
Yeah.
But because he uses that so much, it's almost like his trademark that other players know how to counter that. And
yeah, and especially in modern TVP, drop play is really taking a back seat. Several months ago, drop play was like the way to play Terran versus Protoss. But nowadays, if you know the most successful Terrans almost never use drops, and it's something that you threaten with, but it can't be the backbone of your play, or else with the way Protoss are using Blink and Russian Templar nowadays, and are much better at positioning your units. It's not a reliable way to win games.
Yeah. Well, MC, I believe, also knocked out DRG. So MC not only performed well against Terran, he also performed well against Zerg, man. And we were like, what? The 32nd seeded player, even though there's, a little asterisk next to that because he was a replacement for Marine King Prime, took out DRG, the #1 seeded player at this tournament. I mean, talk about upsets, man. That was huge for MC.
Yeah.
So he's definitely looking good against all matches.
And I mean, he knocked out Inori too. So he was one of the few players who played every single matchup. Even Violet, who ended up winning the tournament, he never played a single Protoss entire tournament. So there was a lot of people who didn't have the whole play every matchup type thing. But MC was he was getting different opponent of a different race every single round, pretty much.
Yeah, and MC was the last Protoss in the top 4, I believe.
Yeah.
So when I got to interview him, I was going to ask a question. Do you have any comments being the last Protoss in the tournament? But he answered that question for me. He's when I asked if he had any words for his opponent in one of his matches, and he said, this is fans. You're going to see the 32nd Protoss player become the #1 player and be an MLG champion. And I thought, oh, well, that was the next question I was going to ask you, MC, so you read my mind. Let's go back to the desk and get this started. It's a little bit, it's definitely different in these arenas, right? Because they don't have a crowd there, and they can't feed off the crowd reaction, but still, emceeing his showmanship and his willingness to answer in English was very cool to have that. And I was very impressed with Empire Violet's English as well. I knew he could speak English, but that he was always willing to do his interviews in English was pretty cool. And by the way, I want to thank Brian, who stepped in to translate when Wani was out for our first interview on Sunday. It was really cool of him to do. Translators, they bridge that gap that we need between Korean and English, or any kind of foreign language there, because every single one of these players has a human story to tell. But speaking of Violet, he wins. He wins this tournament, man. 9 months ago, 10 months ago, the guy was an up-and-comer, right? And he starts performing well on the last couple months, and now he is an MLG Arena King, Arena Champion. And those Zerg versus Zerg matches against Symbol proved that even though a mirror match can be boring back in the old days of StarCraft 2, they did not produce a boring finals for the MLG Spring Arena 2. Axslav, I want to hear your thoughts on that final game between those two players.
I thought the final was exceptional. I talked to some other people, and they were like, yeah, it was nice, but there's too many roaches. And it's like, there were a lot of roaches, but it's like saying you're watching a Terran mirror, and there's some, there's been some really excellent Terran games, and it's, excuse me, I was kind of messing my words there.
It's okay.
They're saying it's too many Marines, or it's too many siege tanks. It's like there's certain staple units of the race that's what they're going to make. It's their staple unit, right? Zerg versus Protoss, they make a lot of roaches too, right? And it's just what's interesting to me, and I think a lot of fans, including me, find interesting, isn't what units people are making, but it's what they're doing with those units. Because you can grab a bronze player and have them make battle cruisers, right? And that's not that exciting. But when you see, there was a match, was it yesterday? Maru Prime did this mass battlecruiser build, but because it was played at a high level and the way he used it was just so exciting. And it's the same thing with the way Violet was playing with his roaches, right? The way he was using Niduses and the way he was splitting up different groups. and he was using multiple attacks to set up other attacks. It was always, you know, a 3 or 4 step tactical plan. He was using drops, and then of course he had transition plans as well for that late game. Whereas most Zergs they're like, all right, I'm gonna get a good economy, I'm gonna build a bunch of roaches, and then maybe out infestors and we'll fight. But Violet was just, you know, he was steps past that, right? He was thinking of adding drops, he was thinking of going up to Broodlords, and you could tell there was never a moment in those games that he was like, what do I do now? You know, it was always you always had the plan, and it was really fun to watch.
Well, there were moments in the games when we were watching him that symbol's dead, and all of a sudden these Nidus networks are popping up at Violet's base, man, and the game goes another 20 minutes back and forth. And Violet, I remember him sending those 2 overlords with roaches to different sections of the map and dropping, and then like at the same time those Nidus networks were building. We're like, what is happening, man? This is not the Zerg versus Zerg we're used to. And Violet even said the same thing in his interview. He's like, this is not ZVZ. This is not what they are used to. And seeing that performance, that surprise in a finals is fantastic. It shows that this game is still evolving. These players are still evolving. Tactics are still evolving. And that it's still anybody's game, man. It's still a king of the hill mentality that any player can win these tournaments. It's just incredible.
And it's funny because there's constantly, like every couple weeks you see another thread on Team Liquid talking about, like, you know, uses of Nidus, and then it's like pages and pages of people saying, oh, they're worse than this, they're only used like bad man to your opponent. But I think everyone has to go watch those finals, because I mean, Symbol was totally dead on that game on Metropolis. He was light years behind everything. And do that Nidus, he turned it into just a crazy exciting game. And if Violet wasn't using those Niduses in return, I think Symbol would have won that game.
Yeah.
But Violet uses a counter Nidus to then, you know, shut down a lot of Symbol's economy in the later parts of that game is what brought it back.
Yeah, I think just watching the VODs of those games along with any of Polt's games was worth the $20 for that weekend.
Polt's games versus his series versus MC wasn't quite as good, but all of his first games he played he played Dong Regu. I think I didn't catch his games versus Bly, but for his games versus Dong Regu, I saw his games versus Symbol, his games versus Violet. Those are all just, you know, those 3 series of TVZ were just absolutely phenomenal to watch from a fan of the TVZ matchups perspective.
Exactly. You and I got to watch some of those matches of Polt. I believe it was Polt versus DRG, or it was another Zerg player. Excuse me, in that tournament. And there were multiple times when I thought, that's it, Polt's done. His army is gone. And all of a sudden, he's got just enough in the midsection of the map, or his base is getting assaulted, and he decides to go towards his opponent's base and start doing as much damage as he can to the production facilities, and then spreads his Marines out in a fashion, this concave fashion that burned into my mind. It was so cool to watch and see that performance of him pulling off these maneuvers when we all think he was dead, right? And almost resurrecting in those games and taking them. The performance of him all weekend was incredible against Zerg players that weekend. Like you said, up against MC, wasn't as exciting, but definitely Polt versus any of those Zerg opponents, that was nuts, man. That was almost draining to watch because you're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah, I think that I haven't seen TVZs as good as his matches since maybe Jockey versus Enoch is like the GSL finals from like four seasons ago. It's like the only other TVZ matchup that like stands in my mind as being at that level of play that Polt was. In fact, actually, Polt was even beyond that. His macro was so far above, you know, Terra macro that we've seen up to that point. And you know, it wasn't just the execution. It was he had his build was flowing seamlessly, you know, up to like the 25-minute mark. He was constantly increasing his economy for 25 minutes while doing all this other stuff, and it was just it was at the level of like, you know, it was beyond anything you've seen in StarCraft 2 so far. It was almost similar of some of the very top level of StarCraft 1 play that we've seen after they've been working at the game for like 10 years, right? So
yeah, well,
it was very exciting.
Having that storyline weave, you know, we saw Polt dramatically rise to the top of the ranks on day 1 and day 2, right? And day 2,
yeah,
I got to interview him, and it was so funny because at the beginning I go, Team Polt, TSL Polt, man, how are you doing this? You know, you were down against DRG that first game, DRG wiped him out that first game. And then he came back and won that series. And he said, I played sloppy the first game, but I really turned it around for the next two, and that was so true. Whatever happened that first game, I don't know if it was nerves or if he was just making mistakes that a player usually doesn't make mistakes at his caliber. He totally flipped that around and came back. So that was very exciting to see at the end of day 2. I believe it was day 2. Day 3, we see Violet take out Polt. And Violet actually came to me between his matches, and I said, hey, what's up? And he said, how do I beat Terran? Like, he was almost just sad, like with a sad face. How do I beat Terran? I said, make banelings. And he goes, that doesn't work. I said, well, make roaches. And then kind of we laughed it off. And then he beat Polt. And I asked him, I said in the interview, you asked me, now I'm asking you, man, you know the answer. How did you do it? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know how I did it. But he definitely did it. And for me, that drama of seeing these players, Polt defeating DRG, and then Violet beating Polt, it was a beautiful story that whole weekend, man. Really, really thrilled for how it turned out, and it was really every matchup was exciting because there was upsets and predictions that people made, aka Slasher, did not pan out really at all. DJ We got close with picking Symbol taking second place there, but really it was
the MMA, Dongregu, and I think those were his 2 main picks.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I just know that they weren't too well.
Goody put his MMA hopes to rest pretty convincingly.
Yeah, Goody. Goody, Zake, Grubby, they all performed pretty well at this tournament. And when we heard that Goody took out MMA, I think I interviewed him. I did. I asked how the matches went and what had happened. And he gave a pretty good breakdown of what occurred. And I think we went over. Yeah, I think we went over those replays.
Yeah, we did a replay analysis. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to see kind of what happened, what buckled, for MMA, and it was pretty intriguing to watch that stuff, man, and to see how things have shifted, even from last year, with how the mirror matches were and how they kind of are now. It's very exciting. But before we wrap up Spring Arena 2, we need to talk about the Dr. Pepper stream. Axslav, you might be getting tired of me complimenting you on this, but you did such a great job the first Spring Arena and now the second Spring Arena, giving some really cool in-depth analysis of the matches that had just occurred, right? We had access to the replays right after the matches had concluded, and you got to pick which ones you wanted to cover, and these were, a lot of them were the major games. And we also got to play with the community, and I would say that the only room for improvement we have for the Dr. Pepper stream is just like taking suggestions from the community, honestly, because I had a good time. I think you had a good time.
Yeah.
The community had a good time. They just need to know that we're in that chat channel, MLG All Access, and playing with them and giving out like awesome prizes and signed mouse pads and HD stream codes. We got to meet the winner of the Spring Arena #1 Ultimate Fan Experience. We had the Ultimate Fan Experience once again. So guys, seriously, follow at MLG All Access during the spring or during the arenas, because there'll be more arenas, I'm sure, through the rest of the year, and you can win some awesome stuff. Or you can win a trip to the championship, like a VIP trip, all expenses paid. I get to interview you on the main stage. There's like some really cool stuff that people could be really checking out all weekend long. But Axslav, I want you to be real with me, man. Is there anything that you think we could add to the Dr. Pepper stream?
You know, the one thing I think that I'm thinking of doing if I get the opportunity to do this again, which I hope I do, is I'm thinking, maybe a couple days before the event of putting a poll up somewhere for people and asking them, of the several, we have an option of doing different types of content, right? We can do replay analysis, we can do the community games, and then also we can do commentary about the current live game going on. Of course, we can't show that game all the time, but we can do the commentary and just have a picture of either us doing the commentary or of the pro players watching at the lounge. And then also maybe have a section called Other, and then see if other, what people like, right? If it seems like 70% of the people want to do a certain thing, then we can try to focus next time. Okay, instead of just kind of guessing, let's do this now and this now. We'll do 70% of the time we'll be doing whatever 70% of the people voted for in a poll, and then 10% of the time we'll be doing whatever 10% of the people voted on in a poll, and try to make it. I think we did a good job with responding to the community, but it was more, the tweets people were saying in and what people were saying in the channel, and just kind of trying to get out there and get even more community feedback. I think you can never get too much, I think.
Yeah, I think for the next one, we can kind of pre-game it. Like, we can get a thread on Reddit, which I had when we had the first Spring Arena, when I had you, Chef, and QXC do that panel. I had, guys, what kind of questions do you want me to ask these different players? So if we can prep it more and say, hey, guys, this is what's going down in the Dr. Pepper stream, so definitely check it out. Follow it on Twitter, because you can win some amazing prizes. So I think for the next one, however MLG wants to coordinate that, I hope they do invite you, or I hope you qualify for the arena, but by chance, if you do not, I hope they do invite you. But even if you do qualify, I'm sure you could stop by the lounge for a little bit and say hello. I would like to do a little bit more interviews and interaction with the players, but honestly, the players are there to kind of like decompress and watch the matches and focus on the matches and stuff. And I completely respect that. They are there to compete. And if they're knocked out, I'm a little bit apprehensive of asking, like, hey, you want to do this, and be in a cheery mood, when they're like, no, not really, man. I just want to kind of watch this and chill for a bit. But some of the players, might be interested in doing that. So we may coordinate that later, but for the most part, I think it was a very successful weekend. Now, the final little portion I want to talk about for MLG, and then we're going to move into Pro League and actually have a weekend talk, because I know he's just chilling out there.
It'll be nice to contribute a little bit at least. Do something for you having me on here.
Yeah. Is the new casting talent that was brought over to this Major League Gaming, and that is specifically Total Biscuit, Apollo, and Wolf. And when it comes to me personally, the scene I know the least about is the European scene when it comes to players. There were some players at this arena that I hadn't met yet, whose careers I wasn't as familiar as other players. And so I think when you bring in European talent, it adds more to... It brings more of that information and that first-hand knowledge. I thought they were great this weekend. They're great guys. They're really nice. We had some very good discussions on kind of the state of esports and casting and scheduling and everything like that. And then having Wolf come over, Wolf is a little bit taller than I thought he would be, and so is Apollo. It's like, I wonder how tall these guys are, because we don't fully see them on camera. The camera's a little bit ambiguous, and they were taller than I thought they would be. But Wolf is a really cool guy as well. Like, these guys are definitely passionate about what they do. They're friendly, and they want the most success esports can possibly have to come true. So it was great working with them. It was a pleasure. But Axslav, this was your second arena you attended, and I want to get your thoughts on you being a player first and a caster/analyst second.
I think it's there's some people who are like, oh, you can't be a player and a caster and analyst, but it's not like taking a weekend out to provide some some helpful analytical knowledge to MLG is really affecting my playtime, right? There's a lot of things that do affect my playtime, but something like that is not a big concern. And I think it's having the perspective of someone who does play at that professional level. I think it's helpful. I think I'm providing something that's of use to them beyond just the regular casting crew, who are all great people and they're really great at casting. But I think I can add in a couple little extra tidbits there that sometimes I think the community can really appreciate. So I think it's great, and I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm not sure what everyone else thinks about it, because I haven't really gone around and asked everyone yet, but I think most people are pretty on board with it.
Yeah, I actually got to catch most of Inside the Game, the show that DJ Wheat hosts with Pain User, In Control, and Idra, and they said it was great to have you at the analysis desk for one of those matches during the weekend. And I'll say it again, man, even though you are a Protoss player, your knowledge of the game overall, with the different races and the race mechanics and the meta game and timings and all that, is very impressive. And so I feel like completely comfortable with you giving replay analysis of like a Zerg versus Zerg match. But obviously, on paper, you want to have like 3 separate players to represent each of the races. That's what they did at Spring Arena 1. But I feel that you're a great fit at the analysis desk and doing the replay analysis. And having the insight of a player, an active pro player, is cool. I don't really see active pro players in other sports giving that kind of commentary live. They don't have like smaller football cups. They don't have like smaller football arenas. You have the huge seasonal World Series. That's soccer, but you have the huge Super Bowl. Hey man, it's football internationally is what they call it. Mm-hmm. But
the only exception I can think of that would be there have been, like, I think Frank Trigg and Boss Rudin did commentary for MMA while they were still professional fighters.
Yeah, with MMA in that scene.
Yeah, because it's MMA is so technical, right? So
yeah,
it does help to have someone who's, and I think that's similar to StarCraft, right? StarCraft's even more technical.
Yeah. Well, and it's still growing. It's still growing, and the talent pool. We don't have John Maddens in StarCraft 2, right?
Yeah.
Some people are retiring from Brood War, but they're moving over to League of Legends over there in Korea. So, using talent that's active in the player pool is, I think, a good decision. But just as long as everybody understands when a player says, "I'm a player first," and everything else second, and that's not being disrespectful to anyone, but and I hear In Control say this a lot, like, I want to dedicate my time first, like my number one priority is being the best player I can be, but if other opportunities open up for me to take, obviously I'm going to take them, right? And it's great for you because, you get to plug your team, your presence there at the arenas. I mean, you're in the press conferences, or the press releases. So it's great, and it's a great opportunity for players that weren't able to qualify but can still go and be a part of that weekend.
Yeah, and it's good for the team sponsors too. Just having a jersey on and being on camera and things like that can help a team like mine, who we're not at the very we're not up there with the EGs and the liquids and stuff, and we don't have those big tournament results. We don't have those big players that get a lot of interview and FaceTime. So every little bit you can kind of help advertise the team, I think, helps out a lot to bring up the smaller teams, which I think are important, right? The big teams get their players from the smaller teams, right? When a smaller team gets a player that becomes more successful, then that's when the big teams can increase their talent pool. So without the smaller teams, there wouldn't be the bigger teams. That pyramid needs that base. So
yeah, exactly. And if everybody was on one team, would it be as exciting, right? And it's cool to see your team, Infinity 7, grow and to hear more of the different players in the news, along with other teams that are out there. And, it kind of goes back to, like, the Oakland A's versus the Yankees, right, in baseball. Yeah. I mean, if you're rooting for the underdog, you're rooting for the Oakland A's. And that kind of mentality sometimes happens that transfers from the sports that we know into esports of, like, this person is from this team. This team is known for being, like, very, very dominant or getting players that win tournaments, and they're up against somebody from a smaller team. It creates an interesting story. It creates kind of that human struggle of the underdog, So it's cool, man. And like I said before, it was great having you there that weekend, and you do a great job. And honestly, because I have worked with you, like, in tournaments now, I'm going to be rooting for you for, like, every tournament I hear you're in. Like, come on, Axslav, you can do it, buddy. So, and the people that watch the Dr. Pepper stream hopefully will feel the same way, too. They're like, hey, I feel a connection to this guy. He does great work. Now I'm going to root for him. I'm going to tweet him. I'm going to tweet about him when he's in his tournaments. And it just continues to grow your product, your brand. So, wrapping up everything about Spring Arena number 2, let's shift gears here and talk about Pro League. Wigan, you were able to watch a good portion of this.
Yeah, I watched the first couple of hours, and it was really exciting because, especially just that moment. Not only was it cool to see Brood War again, I just haven't watched Brood War in so long, so it was just kind of interesting for that. And I think a lot of StarCraft 2 players that really only got into StarCraft with the second game, if they did watch that, they probably got a pretty cool little history lesson, and it's pretty exciting and interesting to watch. But there was just that whole time, that possibility of seeing, like a Flash or a Jaedong or something like that playing StarCraft 2 when it got to that was just like so exciting. I was watching,
and it took a while for the game to start. Like, what's happening? Come on!
Yeah. there was a little bit of a I guess delay between games for commercials, things like that. That was kind of vicious, but apparently that's pretty normal for Pro League. But I was watching it on a stream on Team Liquid because there was English commentary for it. But Sale, I think, or Saley, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Sayle.
Yeah, and just the whole time it was like, all right, we need this player to lose, so they have a chance to send out Flash here, and like there's like literally hours of people like figuring out, okay, how can Flash come out now? You know? So it was exciting. That's the word I'd use most for it. It was exciting. I don't think it was particularly good in a competitive sense, like the format, and the gameplay itself as a StarCraft 2 player or fan wasn't super good, but it was really neat to watch. So I don't know, did either of you guys actually get to watch any of it, or because I know you were traveling?
No, I didn't get to see it. I've talked to some people about it, but I don't have any first-hand knowledge of what's going on there.
Well, some internets at hotels in the United States are not like Korea, where they have like 80 up, 80 down. It was super bad. So it would load about 5 seconds and then stop, and then load for about 2 seconds and then play the next 5 seconds over and over again. So it almost felt like Morse code of what was happening.
There was actually a little bit of that with the stream itself too.
Really?
So, we always go back to that whole technology as the vehicle of esports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting to see the Pro League reaction to like Battle.net dropping a player or dropping an observer, which happened a couple times.
Or Windows 7 updating.
Or Windows that was a little fun.
The vehicle of
Windows
esports.
7. They lost one of. Did they have to regame, or was it just the observer?
I'm not
I think
sure.
It was the observer had his computer restart because of a Windows update in the middle of a really tense part of a game too.
Yeah, that kind of stuff can get tough, man. One thing that I noticed is that it was in 4.3, and actually, once again, I heard this from DJ Wheat, is that in America, I think it was in 2010, everything became digital. Everything became HD and programming and broadcasting as far as television. In Korea, that transition is still happening, and I think the deadline is next year. So when it comes to OGN, like they're still broadcasting in 4.3, or the other players still play in 4.3 aspect ratio. And Axslav actually prefers to play in 4.3 aspect ratio because they're used to that from old school CRT monitors. That's how we all gamed back in the day. And so seeing that was like, oh, hey, I remember when like games were like that. So it was kind of funny to see StarCraft 2 that way because we're used to seeing Brood War that way. But that transition will happen here pretty soon, I believe, when they're all moving to the 16:9 aspect ratio. So as far as like graphically, what I could see was that, and I pardon my ignorance in this, but I was like, oh, on YouTube. I knew YouTube was going to be live streaming here pretty soon, but I didn't know if they had been doing this for a while with OGN. I'm just always used to being on Twitch, honestly. So when I was like, oh, an esports event not on Twitch, how unusual. But I like asked a couple people like, hey, what's up? I thought it was going to be on Twitch, and they just let it go, obviously, because I was more excited about the games themselves. I actually don't have the answer to that. If somebody does, like, feel free to send in chat. I apologize for my ignorance on that, but I just haven't had time to research it.
I'm not really sure either.
We love Twitch TV, man. They're the best. They really are. So, what did we expect, man? Like these, Brood War to StarCraft 2. Yes, there's some similarities in it. You have 3 races still, but they're different games, man.
Well, there was the whole elephant in the room thing, and a lot of people had hyped it up like, oh man.
Oh, the hype bubble was huge, which is good because we want this to happen, right?
Yeah, it's definitely really exciting, but like if you had like nobody should have expected these guys to come in and be like top level players immediately.
Yeah.
Even if they have been practicing, a lot for it ahead of time. There's still just no way somebody's going to just pick up StarCraft 2 and be at a GSL Codes level. And you could definitely see that in the games. There were some surprisingly good players. Effort played a really strong game against Flash.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he was maxed on Ling Banling Muta at like 13 minutes and just smashed Flash. It was a little bit brutal. And there were a couple unknown in the Brood War scene, but players that were on pro teams that were, I think, definitely there mostly for StarCraft 2. That were pretty good, but nobody there is like a top StarCraft 2 pro level yet, and it's going to be quite a while before anyone is there.
But what's cool about that is I can watch those players grow.
It is.
The growth of those players in Brood War is already past. Like we've had the VODs. A lot of that wasn't really casted in English. Excuse me. I have to say, sorry guys. Like there's so much pollen in Virginia right now. It's crazy bad. I apologize.
Well, and you also you get that whole exciting thing that's going to happen over the next few months. Is are the same players that are the top right now in Brood War, are they going to be the top in StarCraft as they grow, or is like some random KT member going to be better than Flash in StarCraft 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
So it's going to be really cool to see these players as they grow, and if is Flash going to still be that? Is Jaedong still going to be that good, or is this now the time for the other? Even the B teamers on these teams to step up and become the new, I guess, great KT player, the next great ace player, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I am excited to see that. I'm excited to follow their careers into StarCraft 2. I think, echoing what DJ Wheat said, 8 to 10 months, really. I mean, they're still transitioning from Brood War to StarCraft 2. They have to play both games in these matches, so they can't focus just on one game. But in the next season, once it's officially StarCraft 2, I think we'll start seeing some marginal differences and rises in performance there. But yeah, they're not going to be on the same level as the GSL pros for a while, for sure. But can you imagine when the first couple members of the team, like Coach Park and Bisu and Jaedong, come over, like, hey, we're coming to GSL this season, and then they roll into Code A and they do well, but Code S, they can't get into quite yet. That's what I see. I see them doing well in Code A, and then they can't make it into Code S, and then the following season, one person breaks into Code S, and they go, oh no, this is it! This is what we've been waiting for! It's October, and finally somebody's broken, or however they're going to arrange the leagues. We still don't know yet. That press conference for the everybody hold hands and kumbaya thing that happened with Blizzard Kespa and OGN and I think NBC Game. It's great. It's really good to see that. It's really cool, and we may talk about that a little bit later, but the substance there wasn't that much. But according to Artosis, that's what they do. They have these huge, ceremonial occasions, but not much information is released. I think we'll have some more info at Anaheim, but a couple matches that occurred in Pro League I want to talk about. DJ Wheat kept joking about this force field on a pylon, or force fields the player. It almost seemed like mentally the player thought he could trap the Marines inside the force fields, but just shove them out. And force field's a new mechanic. That's a new thing in StarCraft 2, right? So trying to understand what that does. But Axslav, do you feel there's any kind of other obstacles as far as transitioning from Brood War to StarCraft 2?
I think, in Brood War, the mechanics were such a bigger part of it, right? That was the most important thing. Whereas in StarCraft 2, I mean, they're still really important. Even the top level players still have definite holes in their mechanics right now in StarCraft 2. But it's also extremely important to be very adaptable and flexible in your play. For example, that's one of the things why I would mention it. One of the huge differences when you watch Dong Regu and Vida play, right? Dongregyu is just significantly better at macro than Violet. Like he'll just max out faster. But Violet has a lot more success now, or not a lot more, but Violet often can have more success in especially versus Protoss because he's a lot more flexible in his play and he'll react to his opponent more. Whereas Dongregyu he comes from that SC1 idea of you have this plan and you execute it, right? And a lot of the StarCraft 1 players kind of go through that thing, right? They have a map and they spend a lot of time practicing this build and I mean obviously they react in some ways, but their general game plan is often kind of set in stone. And I think we might see a little bit of mix up there between who is the best in StarCraft 1, who's the best in StarCraft 2 based on that being able to change a game plan at certain points and knowing when to do it, because some people also go to change it when they shouldn't, right? And that type of really spontaneous, intelligent, creative thinking type process, we're going to see which players are also have stellar mechanics, but also can do that well. And I think it'll mix up who's on top a little bit.
Yeah, with StarCraft 2, there's two things that jump in my mind, and obviously these aren't the only things that they made changes, but you kind of have auto mining where you can just rally your SCVs or your workers to the minerals, and they'll just start mining automatically. In Brood War, you had to tell them to mine.
Yeah.
And the other thing is larger army selections. It's not just 12 per one control group. You can select like your whole army and make it one control group. So as a casual player, in my mind, I went, oh, hey, that's cool. That's something I don't have to focus on in Brood War. But even like timings and control and when a unit spawns and telling it what to do immediately in Brood War, that switches in StarCraft 2 because you have kind of that ease, that like implemented coding ease that they've done to make it less of a chore in Brood War, but still like you have that built into your mind on what you have to do from Brood War and then transitioning to StarCraft 2. So obviously those aren't the only two obstacles, but those are two that I just think of right off the bat that are different in StarCraft 2. Wigan, do you have any comments on that before we take a quick commercial break?
Well, yeah, like Axslav said, it was really interesting to actually watch the players sort of struggle with a lot of that decision-making stuff early because, they've only had so much time with the game. Like, you could see, for example, like a Zealot heading into like Jaedong's third, and the instant reaction that you don't even see from pro players now at the top of StarCraft 2, and just these instant amazing reactions. And then he just does like a completely ridiculous and stupid attack right afterwards and loses the game. So you have these situations where these Brood War pros have these just incredibly well-honed, reflexes and things like that. But then they just very basic decisions like when to attack, when to move out with your roaches, things like that, completely like have thrown them for a loop so far. So I think that's the biggest adjustment they'll have to make because they're all going to be able to have amazing macro not too long. It's just not a thing that'll be a problem for professional players. But the decision making and the little subtle things are where you're going to see the most improvement over time.
For sure. Well, we're all excited to see that and to see how all that unravels as Korea transitions from Brood War over to StarCraft 2. Right now, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, the GSL Finals will be our topic discussion, and then we'll move on through. So this is Shifting Gears. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. right, guys, welcome back to Shifting Gears. I'm your host, Clutch. Joining me is Wigan and Axslav. Our next topic, the GSL Finals. I
Go ahead. Throw your whole
Go
thing
ahead,
off.
buddy. The
something
floor is yours.
Really, really interesting because Axslav had mentioned, you know, when the players go over, there was a really good interview done by I think Wax Angel on Team Liquid with Jaedong and Bisu, and and I'll actually just link it in the chat for people. One of the things that was mentioned was that Jaedong was sad because one of the things that had made him so great was his Mutamicro, his Muta control. Mm-hmm. And in StarCraft 2, it's much less meaningful. It doesn't accomplish as much, and anybody can kind of do it. You know, there's not like seeing Jaedong do these amazing Muta attacks with like 3 different groups and stuff like that. And in Brood War was like this incredible thing. Like how could he even do that? Now there's that doesn't mean anything in StarCraft 2. So is Jaedong still going to be Jaedong? You know.
Ugh. Well, that's that evolution, right? Of moving into a new game. You know, that's some of the things that's tough for a lot of people that follow Brood War for a long time, is saying goodbye to those kind of very specific tactical maneuvers that these different players used. But now we have, you know, different things that are happening. Just think about the Nidus Worms used this weekend at Spring Arena 2 in the Zerg versus Zerg matchup. There was no such thing as a... Well, there was the network in Brood War, but it was a little bit different. You had to spawn both areas on creep. And the worm is you just have to have vision in StarCraft 2. But I understand what you're saying, man. That's a very poignant thought. Man, I don't know. I think when Jaedong gets in front of a crowd on American soil, we'll see how he feels after that. Maybe somebody can ask him that has a mic on stage, usually at events. Yeah, can't reveal any more. All right. So, guys, GSL. Wigan, you were able to watch some parts of this.
Oh, yeah.
Axslav and I were busy this weekend. Axslav, were you able to catch any of it, or just
yeah,
the recaps?
I actually watched the whole finals.
Cool. Nice. Well, I heard a lot of great stuff about the finals. Axslav, let's go with your thoughts first, and then we'll hear from Wigan.
I thought there was some neat games. I do feel that, you know, Squirtle is just playing his normal, solid, kind of cautious gameplay, where it's like he's not going to make any mistakes, and he's just going to wait for his opponent to kind of lose, you know, make a mistake, and he's going to jump all over them with just really solid play. And MVP was like combining some really interesting stuff with some kind of questionable mechanics, which is kind of, I think maybe, you know, there's talk of his injury and stuff, but especially his macro was not quite up to where he used to seeing it. And but on the other hand, he had some really, really good timings and some razor sharp decisions that it made it kind of, it was a good series, but I honestly thought a lot of the series from MLG were a lot better than the GSL finals, although there were some really fun games. The game on Metropolis was fun. It was fun up until where MVP somehow missed the MP into Mothership when he has like 15 ghosts and it's a Dixon Nexus. and it was, I guess, the only way he could possibly lose this game. Like, that should have been the only thing he was actually doing. He should have done nothing but, like, he should have just, like, not even looked at his units, just, like, scroll around the map trying to find a Mothership, because that's the only possible way to go lost. But, yeah, I mean, that was actually a pretty exciting game on Metropolis. It was cool to see him do that battle clear thing. But yeah, I wasn't as excited about the games as I was about, you know, some of the past finals.
Wigan?
Yeah, that Metropolis game was like, I played Terran, and just like watching that whole thing unfold, and watching him lose this just massive battlecruiser BC fleet to that, it was like table flipping moment. Like I was just like, why Protoss? Like it was such a painful thing to actually watch. But I agree with you that all the games themselves, like in a vacuum, weren't all that exciting. Though the first 3 by MVP, I thought he was playing very well, especially considering he's got the bum wrist and stuff like that. Like he was absolutely tearing Squirtle apart. But just overall, the whole series was just so exciting for me because MVP goes up 3-0. Everyone thinks he's just going to sweep the series. It's over. and then this just amazing comeback starts by Squirtle, and it wasn't like the best play, but it was just so close each game that it was exciting the whole way through, and you know, for it to go all the way to Game 7, that's what everybody wanted in that series. So overall, the whole series was just super exciting to watch, I think.
Well, the most I heard about that weekend was the Vortex with all the battle cruisers, and
so sad.
How it was described to me. I thought, what? I mean, there's all these planetary fortresses on the map. How could that have happened? But I saw the part of the VOD today, man, and that Vortex was just timed and placed so well, and then all the storms and the Archons were there and a couple Stalkers. Yeah. That was crazy. But speaking of Vortexes, man, Stefano versus MC, Spring Arena number 2. Stefano, parasites, neural parasites, MC's mothership, and then uses his own vortex on him. That was crazy, man. We called it, it was called the reverse vortex, I think is what we were calling it. That was crazy to see. It was, I think Apollo said it's almost like Stefano was teaching MC how to play his own race. It was really cool. So there's some definite vortexes happening this weekend in StarCraft 2. It's kind of sad that the mothership will be gone, and then the Thor becomes a heroic unit. Like, that's not going to happen anymore. It's like, what's Blizzard doing? But it's nice to like have these. Yeah, it's nice to like have these VODs to remember what the mothership was and what it could do. The reverse vortex was pretty cool. Anything else about the GSL finals before we move into previewing upcoming StarCraft 2 events?
MVP's got a lot of testicles to proxy 2 racks in Game 7.
Yeah.
With all that money on the line. That was, I don't think anybody saw that coming. Though, I mean, I guess if there was one map in that pool to cheese on, that'd be the map. But
yeah.
Proxy 2 racks, Game 7, it's a move made of testicles.
Well, I'm glad that I went to a Game 7.
Yeah.
As we've seen in the kind of the far past of GSL with how the groups worked, that the finals sometimes were just blowouts. You know, I remember that I think it was Nesty versus Losira, and it was just a blowout, honestly, in some of these finals. But since they shifted around how groups work, we've seen some incredible finals. I think my favorite finals that I got to see live at BlizzCon was the MVP versus MMA. And oh my gosh, the electricity in that room, man! I think I was pretty close to being in tears, because I was rooting for MMA. I even was filmed by the GSL crew in the hotel because we were talking, and Mr. Che was there along with the film crew, and they filmed me asking me who was going to win, and MVP and MMA turned their backs. And I said, you know, MVP, he's favored to win, but I'm going to choose MMA. And then MMA saw that later on, and he came up to me, and he goes, you chose me? I was like, yeah, man, I chose you, and you won. So, congratulations. But, like, it was just, it was so hard for me to watch MMA lose at Spring Arena 2, man. Mm. Like, he is my favorite player. So, next to Axslav, of course. But MMA is my favorite Korean player. But, like I said at the beginning of this episode, it is still anybody's game, and Violet, now the king, I wonder who's going to take this spring championship, and that's what we're going to talk about now, ladies and gentlemen. MLG Anaheim is within 3 weeks away, and if you want to talk about hype, this event has been more hyped than any MLG event, but not without merit, right? I mean, let's break this down. 1, Kespa players. 2, Blizzard World Championship Series USA Finals happening, the USA Tournament happening, the MLG Spring Championship happening, spectator passes might sell out, multiple computers, a lot of computer stations with Heart of the Swarm beta. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff going down. This is the BlizzCon of this year. It is. There is no official BlizzCon, but Blizzard is making a presence at MLG Anaheim. So if you want to dress up in your World of Warcraft cosplay, be my guest. If you need to get that out of your system, be my guest. Hell, I'll take a picture with you, all right? I recommend doing StarCraft cosplay. Diablo 3 cosplay would be cool as well. But you know, this is going to be huge. This is going to be huge. And when MLG is saying spectator passes might sell out and they doubled the floor space, that's got to give you a number. I mean, that's, I don't know, man, 30,000 people plus? I don't know what the exact number is going to be, but it's going to be a lot. But let's break this down first. Caspa players, right? I mean, the only thing that they've really announced is the exclusive partnership that MLG is going to have and that players will be there. So, again, they're not going to be ready to go up against MC or MVP or Nestea or Squirtle. They're not. They're just not there yet. But it's... I wonder how many people are going to be in line just to be close to Flash, just to get his autograph, just to get Jaedong's autograph. I'm really excited for that. But Axslav, I want to hear your thoughts on the Blizzard World Championship Series for USA, man. I'm sure you're definitely going to compete in that.
Yeah, I am competing in that, and I'm pretty excited for that. It's, you know, I kind of, it's weird. On the one hand, like, if there was like an all Australian or all Canadian or all German tournament, I wouldn't watch it, right? Just because the level of competition isn't as good as an all everything tournament, right? Like, you know, MLG, GSL, etc. But at the same time, I think it's really great. Like, I love what the ESL leagues were huge in Warcraft 3. I don't know how big they were in Brood or in StarCraft 2, but to really grow the German local scene, for example. And I think having these local, like what Blizzard's doing with, you know, pretty much every country has their own little tournament, I think is really cool because you'll get to see players who you might not otherwise see because they're like one of the best in the country, but they're not at the international level. And I'm excited to play it myself, but I do think it's going to get overshadowed by MLG, of course, right? So I'm not sure how much attention it'll get, but from a spectator perspective, I'm not sure how successful it'll be. But from a player perspective, I'm really gonna love playing in it, and then also I think what could be cool is I think some people might be interested in seeing, because you know I think there's 32 people in it. And, you know, most people, how many players from the United States, how many players from any one country can list 32 of? You know, even people who follow the game, right? Maybe Korea.
Yeah.
But even that, I think most people would have a hard time naming 32 Korean players who they kind of know and they watch them play. So I think you might have some fans who maybe they love watching MLG, but you know what? They also want to see someone who's not from Korea or Stefano, you know, win some events, and you want to see how the local talent stacks up.
Yeah, kind of a localized player pool.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. So I think it's gonna be fun. I think there's definitely room for events like that, and I think I hope that the fans kind of reward Blizzard for having these localized player pool events, and show them that they are interested in you know, supporting the local scene as well as the international one.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have the exact details on scheduling, what's happening when. I mean, 256 players in the open bracket and all the seeded players in pool play. Obviously, if anybody has watched a pro circuit event, it's all weekend long, man. Like, it is crazy. The only reason why we have to not broadcast something is we're waiting for results of matches or the players getting set up. Like, it is a constant drive of StarCraft 2, plus the other games are going to be there. We have the fighting games and League of Legends. So it's going to be a huge weekend, and so looking forward to it, man. But of course, yeah, once we have more details on scheduling and how that's going to work, I would love to see the World Championship Series be broadcasted. Like, they've been broadcasting the qualifiers on Playhem. They just had broadcasting for the Canadian qualifiers. So there's definitely a broadcasting presence for it. So hopefully, you know, we'll get to see that. But we shall see. Wigan, any thoughts on that, or any thoughts about the Keswa players coming over?
I mean, it's just going to be another cool thing. Like, I'll be one of those people in line to try to get an autograph of like Flash or something like that. Yeah. But
in line, no, Flash will come to you, man. He'll be like, Wigan, can you sign this?
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be really cool to see them and see exactly what they're there for and everything like that. So that's all very. Cause there's just so much hype surrounding this Anaheim, so much potential. Like Anaheim would be an amazing event if it was just like the last MLG, but instead you have all this extra stuff. It's it's going to be like a nerd overload for me, man. I don't know how I'm going to spend all my time.
Yeah, I gotta be in tip-top shape, man. It's like being on
Get
stage.
some flashcards, you know, for team.
No, even though I know the teams, I write them down just so, like, mentally and physically.
Look at the jersey.
I write them down. Yeah, of course, I look at the jersey. Like SK Gaming MC, because I was used to saying OGS MC for so long. Like, yeah, I mean, there's certain techniques that I do to make sure I don't have a team poll moment. But once again, thank you so much, community, for writing that mistake and turning it into a meme. I just think it's funny. But obviously, yeah, I would never want to do anything like that intentionally, and to make every sort of preparation for that event, because it's huge, and it's a huge opportunity to be a host for that, and for me to introduce certain players that I haven't actually met yet, that a lot of people are really excited about seeing for the first time. It's really an honor to do so, and I plan to just, we all plan to be the best, right? Axslav, player-wise, Wigan, admin-wise, myself, host-wise. And as long as we feel prepared, which honestly, I feel like I've done this enough times that I know what's expected of me, and I know what to do, and I can be creative in what I do, be that dancing or whatnot. Obviously, I'm not going to, like, overdo that, but it just becomes easier the more you do it. Axslav, I'm sure it's the same with you going to tournaments. It's just easier tournament format-wise to participate in them. At Wigan, same for you, being an admin, all around badass. I mean, I'm sure it's tough sometimes, but you get used to it, right? So I'm just really looking forward to it. And once again, thank you, MLG, for hiring me to be a host at the Spring Arena, and that continuing on to the Spring Championship. Now, I wrote this down. I really don't have anything more to say than what people have already been saying positively about the MLG Kespa exclusivity partnership. I feel there's just a lot of theory crafting going on in the internet of like, oh no, this could mean this and this could mean that. I honestly don't know what's going to happen because of it. MLG has its reasons. Kespa has its reasons. They obviously want it to be successful. And as long as it is a success and promotes esports all around, great. But in the end, guys, this is a business, and you have to make proper business decisions for that business to thrive and for two cultures to come together. Because no matter how much we watch GSL and OGN and NBC, Korean culture and American culture have some differences. And it could be something as simple as how to properly schedule something, to how to have proper hand gestures and body movement and body language. But the more that we become acclimated to each other, not only in like esports events, but in business transactions and business discussions, like I said, like the easier it is to understand each other. So in my mind, this exclusive deal means that, okay, here's what I expect of you, this is what you expect of me, we have this locked down for a number of years, let's make this happen. But, I could just be naive and not know exactly what's going on, but that's my initial sense of it.
Well, like, here's the thing, right, with that word exclusive that everyone's having all these problems with. Do you know what that means exactly? As far
Nope.
As, nope, I don't either.
Nope.
So as a rational thinking human being, I'm not freaking out about it until I understand what the details are. So people should absolutely calm down with that. MLG is not out there to just murder esports wholesale or anything like that. So, maybe wait for the details before you pick up the pitchforks.
Wait a minute. But then you might not have a reason to pick up the pitchforks.
That'd be pretty crazy, right?
And then you wouldn't have fun waving them around.
Yeah.
True.
So if she weighs more than a duck, then she's a witch. Burn her. Yeah, that's the double-edged sword of the internet. You have access to all sorts of information and all sorts of trolls at the same time.
That's the fun.
Well, if you have an infinite amount of information, you can rearrange it in an infinite amount of ways, and you can have an infinite amount of conclusions, right?
Whoa. Yeah, man.
For me, right?
That's wow. Wait till you see this baby reach 88 miles per hour. That's all I wanted to say on that, guys. This is a business. This is sports entertainment, and some things you have to have locked down to make sure you can have a fully engaged entertaining product that people want to see and that people want to pay money to see, not only just for pay-per-view events, but to fly out, to get a hotel, to take time out of their week to use their vacation days to go to this. So a lot of that's on the line as being a fan, being a hardcore fan, you know. But I'm excited for it, period. And am I a little bit biased with MLG? I mean, yeah, but like I've worked with them a lot, but I'm still a private contractor and I'm still entitled to my own opinion. And my own opinion is, let's wait and see what happens. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Let's shift gears now and talk about our last topic here. Esports at E3. If you guys haven't heard, CBS Interactive and Major League Gaming is hosting a booth at E3. Now, this is a pretty excuse me, big deal. E3 is one of the biggest gaming conventions, press conferences that happen in the Western Hemisphere. And for anybody to have a booth there is a big deal. A lot of different contacts are happening. I do have some cough drops, jawbone. Thank you very much, guys. Like I said, sorry. See, it's just so much pollen in the air right now in Virginia. So this is big, right? And there will be some more information that will be released about it, but I am very, very, very excited for E3 and the presence there. Axslav, you know, there's a lot of different video games out there, and the video game culture is booming. It's huge. Monetarily, it's bigger than films. But competitive gaming is still a fraction of that. If you were to go to E3 and you had the opportunity to present what esports is all about, what would you say?
It's a tough question. I would, you know, I guess if I was in front there presenting to everyone, I would kind of say it's the future of selling games. At least as far as, yeah, I think maybe not the future of selling all games, but the future of selling a certain selection of games is in the competitive aspect. Not in regards to you're selling them because everyone wants to compete in them, but that's how you're marketing the games is you know, you're having people play them at the top level and show how amazing the game can look when it's played at that level. And that's it's kind of like, you know, when you want to sell your movie, right? You find the nicest screen and the best quality so it looks as nice as possible. When you want to sell your game, you want to have the people who can play it in the manner that makes it look the most appealing way possible, which for a strategy game like StarCraft 2 would be at the competitive level.
Wow, great thoughts there, Axslav. That's so true, right? You want the best to show it to the rest. Wigan, your thoughts?
On how I'd present it?
Yeah.
You know, nice little PowerPoint, stuff like that.
Laser pointer?
We actually went to, you and I went to one of the PAX panels, the Twitch TV one, and they actually did a really good job of sort of explaining, and of course their focus was on streaming, explaining sort of how esports is growing, right? And I think a lot of that would be pretty important to sort of present it, like just, you know, show a picture of a pro league crowd, show a picture of an MLG crowd, be like, and just show how enthralled these people are, that some of them don't even really play the game, they're just watching these people compete, right? That's what it's really about, right? This competitiveness that, and these stories of these players and these games that people love. Like people, you know, people would rather watch StarCraft than football these days in a lot of cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like I don't watch much baseball anymore. I watch StarCraft every day. You know, that's what I would want to. I'd want to get across. You know, this is this competitive thing that people are passionate about in the same way they're passionate about other sports, things like that. And it's growing and it's exciting. And just all you have to do is like look at the faces of people in a crowd during an important moment in a game, and that tells the whole story.
Exactly, my friend. Well, a lot more eyes that are very, very prevalent in journalism are starting to look at esports. I don't think I can officially say who, but be prepared for an article coming out from a very prominent news journalism magazine. That's all I'll say. And look out for some news about me here coming out pretty soon when I'm allowed to say it. I'm so excited. So guys, closing out the show here. First off, congratulations to all the winners this weekend for StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 had a great weekend, and it just goes to show that it's not declining. The games are still exciting to watch, and it's just getting bigger and better every time. And there's so many talented people in front of the screens and behind the screens that are making it happen. So to all the leagues out there and to all the players, all the managers, everybody, thank you so much for your continued passionate support and hard work into growing esports, not only in StarCraft 2, but in all the competitive games out there. Axslav, it's been a blast to have you on the show, man. You give some great insight, as always. I mean, I knew about that when you helped me host the Dr. Pepper stream. But do you have any shout-outs or final thoughts for us?
Yeah, shout out to my team, all our great sponsors, Steel Series, DeviantArt, G Well Played, Emotion, and Twisted Oak Studios. And if anyone wants to follow more of me, you can get my Twitter at ISAxslav, and then my stream is twitch.tv/Axslav. And I want to thank you for hosting this show. It was really fun talking about all that, especially going over the MLG stuff again and just kind of bringing the memories back of those games. It was probably, the tournament I've had the most fun at to date. So thank you for sharing that with me. It was really fun doing that Dr. Pepper booth with you. And that's it for me.
All right, man. Well, hopefully we'll get to do it again in the future. Wigan, final thoughts and shout-outs.
Well, as always, man, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. Always happy to be here. Shout out to my boss at MLG, Ryan Moore, for helping me through Diablo 3 on Inferno mode. It's nuts. Shout out to Stax Johnson and Galen Andress. And shout out to you, Axslav, man. If there's, for all the people watching this out there, if there's one person you want to watch like for a stream to learn about StarCraft, Axslav's the guy. I think the most I ever learned recently watching streams was I was watching, I think it was you, Axslav, and Illusion practicing. And Illusion was just like dying over and over again to various Protoss pressures, and just watch like the way you can explain how you need to go about thinking in that game is something that everyone who's interested in being decent at StarCraft 2 should check out.
Yeah. Well, thank you very
and follow me on Twitter, DB Wigan.
Yeah.
Just changed everything.
That's right, DB Wigan. Well, my final thoughts, I want to talk a little bit more about Diablo 3. Next episode, I'm going to be doing a full-on review, all spoilers, everything, guys, about this game. And I believe Wigan's going to be joining me for that episode. But the following week, there will be no... excuse me, if I'm alive still. There will be no shifting gears, and you guys will find out why here pretty soon. Just for that week, though. Of course, this show will be back the following week. So next week, full-on review of Diablo 3, major spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you haven't played it yet, tune in. Just mute the stream there. When you guys brought up, or when Axslav brought up how to market your games in the future, right, competitively, I am really enjoying playing Diablo 3. I really am. And I look forward to getting better gear and getting up to level 60. But honestly, I really want to play PvP, because playing PvP at BlizzCon 2 years in a row and having so much fun that I was going through withdrawals between the year that I played. I'm so psyched for PvP to be coming out. So I'm thinking, okay, I gotta be max level, gotta get the best gear. I don't know how exactly the whole gear system will work. I kind of wish that everybody was like set at level 60 and all had like the same type gear, like level gear. But if that doesn't happen, whatever. I just want to start going up against people. Because there is that sense of competitiveness that you can't have really against a computer. Like, you definitely can have those very challenging moments, especially just even in Nightmare difficulty right now. For me, I'm like, holy crap, this is tough. I have to kite around as a wizard and use all my skills and everything. But it's that competitiveness with another person that is so amazing when you win. And so the StarCraft 2 ladder, when you win a ladder game, it's like the greatest feeling in gaming right now is when you win that. So it's so true that as gaming is moving on into the future and broadband internet is prevalent and we're like not having as much lag problems anymore with these person-to-person matches, that competitiveness is starting to grow. And I'm so excited that esports is growing more and more, and that the infrastructure is more solid than in any other time in the last 10, 12 years that esports has been established, right? So I'm excited about that. So like I said, stay tuned for more information from Major League Gaming about E3 and about MLG Anaheim. We'll see you guys next week for the full-on episode about Diablo 3. You can follow me on Twitter at Clutch08. Thanks everybody for their support. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys next week.